Well, we know this show is all about fun and good times, and we've had that together. But it's also so refreshing. We know that there's bad going on in the world, and when a superhero shows up, like this lady right here, Haley Ottolini, and you're in the house, you're talking about something so important, the Mosaic Initiative. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, I tell you, I've been blown away. I've sort of watched from a distance what you were doing, and as I told you, I went to your website initially, and I'm reading, and I said, oh well, she's joined with this group, or she's helping to make a difference here in our small corner of the world. But in fact, honey, you started it here. I mean, you're going after the bad guys.
Well, one, I would definitely never classify myself in like the hero category, even remotely. I think there's a quote by Christine Kane, and to summarize it, it says something about it takes a lot to be made uncomfortable by injustice, but we also have to do something about it.
No doubt.
And so it does take effort to allow yourself to be made uncomfortable, and it's worthy of that.
No doubt.
So.
Yeah, I saw you online, and you were talking about an uncomfortable subject that as a parent, we try to protect our kids. We know that this phone will take them anywhere on the web. They can see inappropriate content. We know now that, many of those girls, they're enslaved, and they're being forced into situations that were beyond their control. And you're following right along with those people, monitoring it, trying to shut those sites down, maybe keep kids from being trafficked and, exploited. And that is a huge task. Goodness.
Yeah, well, so far we've mainly been, as far as our involvement in that area specifically, we've done a lot of just awareness pieces. And then I also have attended a few of the Nicosia global summits, and they're the ones really leading the charge, and I follow along. But I do like to do little segments on my Facebook or different things like that to kind of help people who aren't in our field make sense of what's going on, because I think a lot of times you get little glimpses here and there of maybe court cases that have come up or things like that. And I try to kind of explain it in a way that if you aren't as involved as we are, you're going to be able to understand it, what's going on, because it's important to understand.
It is so important. And you said, you just hit the nail on the head there. Part of the problem is so many times in life, we tend to go through life with our head down, and we're just focused on what we're doing. And if you would keep, we've said this throughout the show, your eyes wide open, sometimes you see things, you're like, that's not quite right, or why is that girl acting this way? Is she being held involuntarily? And I love it because you're starting on the front lines with churches and law enforcement, and you're wanting to make people aware, even foster families, because those children already, they're going to need some guidance. They may have seen things or been through things. Why did this start for you, and kind of bring us up to speed of where you are?
Well, so I'm not sure exactly the exact moment when I learned about sex trafficking, but I do know it was sometime in high school, and I was outraged that slavery was still existing and that our world seemingly has said nothing or done nothing about it from my point of view, very limited point of view in high school.
Right.
And so I essentially started reading everything I could get my hands on. I'm very self-taught in that way. There's not really a degree in human trafficking at this point.
Right.
And so I just started reading and learning as much as I could. And then every opportunity that I got, I would either use it as an opportunity to learn more about that, or I would seek out opportunities to kind of join the field. And so I did actually work for a short time in St. Louis, probably about 4 to 6 months, with girls ages 13 to 17 who had survived sex trafficking. After seeing that, and I did a decent amount of international travel as well to start connecting with existing agencies that are doing such a good job pioneering the fight against this injustice. And I noticed burnout was a major component. The lack of communication, and just these people that were working so diligently and so hard in the trenches.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of create an organization that was, originally it was to help build resources from the existing knowledge. And how do we share those amongst groups so that we can kind of create a standard of excellence? Because when vulnerable populations are the collateral damage for work that is not done properly, it's just unacceptable. It's negligent. And so how do we really do the best that we can do and also serve those who are already serving this cause? And when we moved to this area, realizing how under-resourced this area was in that particular issue.
Yeah, I know that, you've listed there on your site that this is most certainly coming from maybe a biblical standpoint or just knowing and sharing that God loves you and, this is done in the name of Jesus. And really, that's what I've seen so much is with young girls, and you need to turn to the right kind of love,
Right.
the love that is wholesome. And so many times people want attention and they may turn to a place they shouldn't, and it gets them in a world of trouble. And now as a result, we have an enormous problem, and you're working
Right.
to combat this. But, it's also understanding that healthy love and not getting in those situations, because you have children, I have a child, and to think that someone would get their hands on our kids and
Right.
do these, just you can't even think about
Yeah.
some of these things that are happening. It's gut wrenching, and I know there are parents out there who have gone through it, and good for you that you're trying to come to their rescue and their
And
aid.
some parents are the ones doing it as well.
Yeah.
I think you touch on something really important. One of the main myths that we come across, and it's no fault of anyone's to believe this, it's been perpetuated by Hollywood and things, that abduction is the main avenue for people to get recruited into sex trafficking.
Right.
The reality is that a large percentage of the time it's someone that you know. But also I think it's important to notice that a lot of times it's not there. While there is a threat of force or force or these things used, especially these teenage girls, which are a large percentage of trafficking victims.
Right.
Coercion is used a lot. It's similar to like a domestic abuse survivor, and the love bombing and the grooming that happens. So I think you touch on something really important. Traffickers and abusers, pimps, will oftentimes use that desire for love and that vulnerability of young girls or boys, LGBTQ,
Right.
and exploit that.
Right.
And they use that little piece of attention, or they'll show love, they'll buy them nice jewelry or get their hair done or do these little things and tell them they love them. And it's a Taylor Swift song, right? It's when you're
Sure.
15 and somebody
Sure.
tells you they love you,
Yeah.
you're going to believe them.
Absolutely.
And so that's like one of the larger ways that we see people enter what we call the life. And so I think it's important to know that.
Right.
And a lot of times it's so psychological rather than just physical.
Sure.
And that's what keeps them there. So they really try to break the mentality of a person to gain compliance.
Yeah.
And then eventually they get it.
This is just a fantastic organization, the Mosaic Initiative. I love what you're doing in that, you have reached out to organizations that have been able to fund some of these efforts. Because it takes money, it takes money to put troops on the ground, feet on the ground, and put those resources in place. This is no small feat. You're here in Southern Illinois. I mean, you've obviously done your research and you've connected with people, but this is a global effort, and you're right there with them. I mean, how are you working with some of those groups and people overseas?
Yeah, well, I think moving forward, we're going to be focusing largely on local, but we still will continue that international branch because that's really where my background is working with a lot of different international groups. This past year, we actually partnered with one of our partners called Win the Saints.
Okay.
They are one of the only existing shelters for assault and trafficking survivors in the whole country of Malawi, Africa. So there was a special victims unit there that had no funding to be able to really get any of the things necessary to create a functioning special victims unit.
Right.
And the fact that they had a special victims unit in that small village was honestly already like so impressive.
Yeah.
And pioneering in itself because they have so many other issues to combat.
Right.
With the poverty and everything else.
Right. But you have your nose to the grindstone. You guys, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody working collaboratively together. It is a problem. If you're not aware, you need to make yourself aware of it. You guys are helping to bring some of those sites down because, I mean, we know in a perfect world that would not even be available out there
Right.
because it's only fueling the fire. And think about that, everybody has done it. It's so easy to do it. It looks so, welcoming, those buttons, and before you know it, you've gone down a really dark hole. So try to steer clear of that. And we want to help more. So how do we get involved locally? How can people reach out? How can we make a difference?
So usually I say giving time, talents, money, those things are really good to give, and support.
Love that.
Any level of support. Usually in the holiday season, we have an opportunity for people to sign up to write little letters of prayers or support, and I can get those to our partners overseas.
Fantastic.
That's in the past been really encouraging to them, just to know that they have people rallying behind them and covering them in prayer, covering them in their thoughts. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, so there's that way to get involved. We'll have volunteer opportunities moving forward. There's obviously different degrees of volunteering.
Sure.
We can't just let everyone, volunteer in the home, but we will have volunteer opportunities that are more significant time commitments.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, let's do it. It's important, and thank you so much, and thank you for taking on the cause. And boy, you didn't choose an easy one, did you? It wasn't an easy cause by any means.
Usually
right?
the important things I don't think are easy.
They're never easy. They're never easy now. But thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we'll be right back.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to check out the description for all the information about our guests. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And if you did really enjoy it, make sure to hit that subscribe button and then hit the bell to turn on notifications so you can be notified about future episodes.
Let's go.